Hello everyone, this is Digital Yaoi. This is a panel all about reading yaoi digitally. We're going to talk about the reasons why to go digital. We're going to talk about logistics, like what format to buy, and then we're also going to go into detail about where to buy and general rules about buying ebooks. My name is Melanie. You can get a hold of me on Discord, Twitter, or Facebook. Another place you can get a hold of me is Massachusetts BL Fans. I'm one of the admins, so it's really easy to get a hold of me on the Discord. You do not have to be from Massachusetts to join Massachusetts BL Fans, but if you have any questions about the panel or just want to talk about BL, feel free to join. But enough of introductions, let's get into the actual panel. So first we have to ask, why buy yaoi digitally? What's the point? Print books are great. So the first thing to discuss when going digital is cost. So let's start with the example of Sasaki and Miyano. So the 9th volume of Sasaki and Miyano will be published in September. Let's say you haven't read it, you watched the show, or you heard people talking about it, and you want to read the whole series. Well, that's 9 books, and each print book before any sort of sales or special deals is $13 per book. So 13 times 9 is $117. Now, if you were to go to an ebook format, each ebook is $6.99 per book. So $6.99 times 9 books is $62. So there's a big difference between 117 and 62. You're saving at least $50. There is quite a difference if you're going to an ebook format. Here's another example, his favorite. His favorite, as of September, they're going to have 13 volumes. So each book is $12.99 per book. So $12.99 times 13 books is $168. But the ebooks are $6.99, and so $6.99 times 13 is $90. So you're seeing a savings of at least $70 if you are going from a print format to an ebook format. In general, ebooks can be much cheaper. So there are lots of reasons to go digital other than cost. We also have to talk about supporting authors. So when talking about supporting authors, the first thing we have to address is scanlations. So if there's anyone out there who doesn't know what a scanlation is, scanlations are scans of manga that have been translated by fans instead of professional translators. Scanlations do not support the authors because they are being produced by fans. They're not being produced by a publishing company that is going to give money to the author in exchange for producing this product. And I just want to say I'm not here to get on the are scanlations good, are scanlations bad debate. That's not where I'm going with this. I've read scanlations. Lots of people I know read scanlations. I'm not getting into whether or not scanlations are good or bad. I'm just bringing up the point that they don't support authors. And they're kind of just everywhere. They're so easy to get access to. Like you can just do a Google search for whatever it is you want to read, and a lot of the time it'll just pop up. And there's all kinds of sites where you can read scanlations. There's all kinds of apps that you can download where you can read scanlations for free. They're kind of everywhere and they're super easy. And it can be problematic because a lot of time you don't even know if what you're reading is a scanlation. I've met many people who they'll be on a website and the website will say, hey, if you want an ad-free experience, you can pay this amount. And they think, well, if this is an app that wants me to pay money, that must mean it's legitimate, right? And unfortunately, no, there's all kinds of scanlation sites that want you to pay money, and they are giving you a product that is not supporting authors. You are just giving money to a scanlation site. And I know it can be kind of hard to tell, is what I'm reading a scanlation? It looks legit. One easy way to tell if something is a scanlation is if you see this sort of advertisement, like saying who a proofreader is and who a cleaner is. In general, you don't see these on legitimate translations. This is something that is unique to Scanlations. So if you see something where it's like the typesetter is buttermilk biscuits, know that that's probably a Scanlation. It isn't supporting the author. And there may be places where you can access that and still support the author in some way. And that's what this panel is going to be all about, is legal sites where you can go, and if you read them there, it will be supporting the author. When talking about supporting authors, the next thing we need to talk about is the digital manga industry. Digital titles can make more money for authors than print titles. And I know what a lot of you are thinking. You're like, well, wait, if I'm paying more for a print title, wouldn't the author make more money? And the answer is no. It has to do with the fact that printing is expensive. With printing, you have the cost of printing the physical book, paper, ink, the machines printing it, all of that. Then you have the cost of warehouse storage, and you have the cost of shipping. And then what if the book doesn't sell? These companies will have many, many books just sitting in a warehouse, and they're having to pay for that book to be in the warehouse because it didn't sell. It'll actually like cost them money if they print too many and then the book doesn't sell. So in general, print manga is much riskier. So because print manga is riskier, publishers want a bigger cut just in case the book doesn't sell. And when you're dealing with manga, you're dealing with both American and Japanese publishers. And then both American and Japanese publishers want a cut. So you have both publishers wanting a cut. You have the cost of all of this printing and warehouse storage. All of that adds up. So when you are paying $13 for a book, most of what you are paying for is the process of printing and the publishers getting a certain cut just in case the book doesn't sell. The actual cut that the author gets is very small, but that's very different with digital titles. With a digital title, you don't have all of the cost of printing and all of that kind of stuff. And I actually was speaking to June at one point. I was at Bashonen and Con a couple years ago, and I was asking them, how much do your authors make? And they were saying, in general, a lot of our authors make twice as much on an ebook title, simply because there's just no fees. Someone buys it and then they immediately get the digital copy. There isn't all this extra rigmarole in order to get that book to that person. So the author makes twice as much money on an ebook purchase versus a print book purchase. And because of all these complications with the publishing industry, you end up having a lot of limitations on the yaoi industry itself. And that's why you have these weird instances where like you have very popular books, like The Tyrant Falls in Love is a very popular book, but they only print them in very limited quantities because they just don't know how much this is going to sell. This isn't like a mainstream title. Yaoi is kind of a bit more niche. And then you have these weird instances where people are selling volumes of these books at like hundreds of dollars because they're just so rare that even though this is a popular title, the industry just doesn't have trust that it's going to sell, and they just don't print a lot of them. Because of all these limitations with the yaoi industry, we end up with a lot of digital exclusives. So digital exclusives are things that are only available digitally. So for example, Love Pistols was a series that was in print, but they stopped printing it, and the only way you can buy it is digitally. And then there's other books that like they just don't know if it's gonna sell. They're like, oh well, Love Pistols at least has an anime based on it, so it's probably gonna sell. We're gonna try printing it. But there's so much out there that they don't have faith it's going to sell. So like Detested by the Demon Lord is a really good series, but you can only get it digitally. You cannot get it in a print format. In addition to that, there's also extras that you can only get digitally. Like these publishers are not going to spend money printing little extras for you. So if you look at something like his favorite, there's going to be 13 volumes as of September. It's a pretty popular series, but to print an extra is expensive. So when they have a little extra story, they're going to put that online. So if you want the extra story about them being on a deserted island together, you can only get that digitally. And then there's also Webtoons. Webtoons in general are exclusively digital. There's a couple examples of stuff that's getting printed, like Love is an Illusion, but that's pretty rare. There's only a few things that are getting printed. If you want to get into Webtoons, which we're going to talk a lot about during the panel, you have to go digital to have access to them. And the last thing we're going to talk about as to why you should go digital is convenience. In general, ebooks can be very convenient. You can download dozens of books onto one device, and then if you like break that device, you can re-download them. They're not attached to that one device. And you can read them anywhere at any time. I mean, I've had situations where I'm on like an 8-hour flight and I just, before I went, downloaded a whole bunch of books and then I just had them all on that one device. And you can also download free samples, which is pretty cool. Like there's a lot of books, it's like, I don't know if I want to spend money on this. Like the art's kind of okay, but I heard people saying it was good. And a lot of them will have like a free sample you can download. So you can try a couple pages before you buy it. And also, it saves a lot of space. Going digital saves a lot of space. I have purchased so much manga in my lifetime, and it fills up so much of my room. And I've had to get rid of a lot of it just, to save space because it just takes up too much space. And but to have them all digitally, they're not going to take up space in your room. You can kind of read them anywhere at any time. They're very convenient. So that is all of the reasons why we are going to go digital. Now we actually have to talk about how we're going to do that. So we have to first talk about hardware. And in general, with hardware, you have tablets, cell phones, and computers as your options for reading ebooks. So tablets are really great. Tablets feel the most like reading a book. You can hold it like a book, adjust the brightness for comfort, or set the brightness to auto and it'll adjust for you. You can tap to turn the page. It feels like reading the book. For me, it's the most comfortable, and for a lot of people, it's very comfortable. And one of the best things about tablets is you don't have to be limited by a tablet. There's a wide variety of formats and ebook readers to choose from on a tablet. You can download all kinds of apps. You don't have to be limited with a tablet. If you're going to try using a tablet, screen size can be very important. Small screens can be really bothersome to some people. Others have no problem. It's honestly a matter of personal preference. If you are someone who has no issues with a small screen, go ahead, get a small screen tablet. If you are someone who doesn't like reading on a small screen, you should consider getting a tablet that is as big as a manga book. So about like 9 inches or bigger. So here is an example of a manga book next to a tablet. And you want the tablet screen itself to be just as big as the manga book. So when I bought my tablet, I actually took a manga book to the store and I compared all of the screen sizes to find one that was the correct screen size. If you get a tablet with a screen the same size as a manga book, then you never really have to worry about whether or not it's big enough. It's big enough, it's not going to strain your eyes because it is the correct size. Another format that's very popular is phones. Now, phones have the same benefit as tablets in they have a wide variety of formats and ebook readers to choose from. You do not have to feel limited with a phone. The thing about phones is some people find them very uncomfortable because the screen is so small. Other people have no problem. It's honestly a matter of personal preference. If you do not mind reading on a small screen, go ahead and read with your phone. If it bothers you, you may consider trying Webtoons. So webtoons are a style of comic developed in South Korea. They are specifically made to be easy to read on your phone. They read vertically with a lot of white space separating out the different segments. This makes it really easy on the eye, so you don't feel as much eye strain when you're reading in a webtoon format versus a traditional manga format. So this format has become very popular. A lot of authors outside of Korea are creating comics in this format because it's so popular. And they're even getting to the point where manga, traditional manga, is being republished in a webtoon format. So here is an example of something that is being republished in a webtoon format. This is from Titan's Bride. So on the left, you will see the actual manga page from Titan's Bride. And on the right, you will see that they cut out all the different pieces and rearrange them to have like a lot of white space in between. And this makes it easier to read on a phone because it's just easier on the eye. So the last piece of hardware is computers. Now, some people have no problems reading on a computer. Other people hate it because it doesn't feel like reading a book. The screen is far away from your face, so the image is really small. Once again, this is a matter of personal preference. If you don't have any problems reading with a computer, then go for it. If you are going to read with a computer, I highly recommend PDFs. PDFs make the image any size and it stays that size. So you can like make it big or make it small, and then it just sort of stays that size and you can scroll down. A lot of other formats, when you change the size, you turn the page and it goes right back to the default size. Whereas PDFs, you can kind of find what size is comfortable for you and then just scroll. And I highly recommend that if you're going to use computers, you use PDFs. I think they are the most comfortable format for computers. So that is the hardware. Now we're going to talk about formats. There are going to be some websites in which you can pick what format you want to buy. So you can pick PDF, PRC, MOBI, whatever. In general, I tend to recommend PDF and CBZs. So PDFs are great for tablets, phones, computers, everything. They are a scrolling format. Whereas CBZs tend to be really great for tablets. I really only recommend them for tablets. There's a wide variety of CBZ readers to choose from, and they are a page turning format. So I'm a big CBZ fan because I like the feeling of turning a page on my tablet. But if you are a scrolling person, definitely consider PDF. And if you're using a phone or computer, I definitely recommend PDF. Like CBZ is definitely more of a tablet format. When it comes to formats, there's also some formats to avoid, EPUBs, PRC, MOBIs. PRCs and MOBIs are an old Amazon format that's outdated, but EPUBs are really popular. A lot of places sell EPUBs, and the thing about EPUBs is they were made for textbooks. They really weren't made for visual books that are all images. So I've had a lot of issues with EPUBs. If possible, I don't recommend buying a book in an EPUB format. In general, with dealing with a lot of EPUBs, PRC, MOBIs, I've had a lot of issues with like giant white borders. So here is an example of a book I purchased called Maiden Rose. And you can see that like giant white border. I didn't add that border. This is just a screen cap of my tablet. What happened was the resolution is so poor that it added this white border because the image could not fill my tablet. And I've had that happen a lot with older EPUBs. I find newer EPUBs are getting better and better. A lot of companies are doing a better job making EPUBs, but there's still so many EPUBs out there that just have these huge white borders. They have really poor resolution, poor formatting. I don't recommend them. If you can avoid them, I would avoid them. So that is the end of reasons to buy. and logistics about buying. Now we're going to get into where to buy and where to read. We're going to go over library ebooks, subscription sites, Webtoon sites and apps, and manga sites and apps. So I bet a lot of you were not expecting me to go into libraries, but many libraries have digital manga. Some libraries use apps. So for example, there's like the Libby app, and the images I'm going to show you, those are from the Libby app. That is just an example. There are other apps, but this is my local library uses the Libby app. So here's some examples of stuff that I borrowed from my local library using the Libby app. And you can borrow books, and if someone is already borrowing it, you can place a hold on it, and then it'll actually like tell you how many people have a hold on that book, what place in line you are. It's very convenient, so you know when you'll get a chance to read it. And I do want to point out that there is uncensored stuff. So Black Sun, the copy that I was able to borrow, was uncensored. So it is maybe possible that at your local library there is digital manga, some of which is uncensored, that you can get through an app that you can then read at home. The only thing I will note is that with a lot of libraries, you may actually have to go into the physical library and get a library card in order to use the app. Or if you have a library card, you may have to have it rescanned. I had to have that, where I had to have it rescanned in order for me to be able to use the app and get uncensored yaoi from my local library. In addition to having access to ebook yaoi, it's important to remember there's also going to be print book. There may be libraries in your area that have print book yaoi that you can borrow, or it may be in your area and you can get it through something called interlibrary loan. So interlibrary loan is the process of getting a book from another library sent to your library. Not all libraries do interlibrary loan, but there are a lot that do have interlibrary loan. So for example, let's say I want to read the Yaoi Pen Dance. Well, in my area, when I search on my local library's website, the closest book is in the Haverhill Public Library. And Haverhill is a part of a library consortium that includes my local library, Chelmsford. So if I wanted to, I could have the Haverhill Public Library copy of Ten Dance sent to the Chelmsford Library, my local library. I can pick it up at my local library, read it, enjoy it, drop it off at my local library, and then through interlibrary loan, they're going to send it back to the Haverhill Public Library. And for many libraries, this is a free service. Some libraries, they charge for interlibrary loan. Honestly, it all depends on your local library. I highly recommend just checking out your library, seeing, do they even have digital books? Do they have an app? They may have a lot of stuff. Do they have interlibrary loan? Some of them do, and for many of them, it is free. It is an option for getting free stuff from your local library. Next, we're going to move on to subscription sites. So this is a list of subscription sites I found Yaoi BL stuff on. This is not a list of every subscription site out there. There are lots of other subscription sites out there. For example, there's Shonen Jump. It's only $2.99. It has a lot of great stuff on it. It's one of the cheapest ones out there, but it really doesn't have Yaoi or BL. So this is just a list of Yaoi and BL sites, and we're only going to focus on two. We don't have time to go into all of these subscription sites and discuss the pros and cons, so we're just going to talk about Yaoi Cat and Manga Planet because those two have a lot of Yaoi on them. So first, Yaoi Cat. Yaoi Cat is only $4.99 a month, and for that price of $4.99, you get unlimited access to all of their yaoi that is there. It is a very good deal, and they do have a very large library with lots of yaoi and BL on it. The other one to make note of is Manga Planet. Now, some of you may not have heard of Manga Planet. Some of you may have heard of Futekia. So Futekia was a yaoi subscription site just like Yaoi Cat. Futekia ended up merging with Manga Planet, so they have a much bigger library. They have a library that has stuff that is not yaoi on it. However, the amount of yaoi they have is a lot. They actually have a larger yaoi library than Yaoi Cat. They are a little more expensive than Yaoi Cat. They are $6.99 per month. However, they do have a nice pepper rating system. So the pepper system is a system that lets you know how spicy or how sexy a book is. And I personally find it very useful because like sometimes covers can be very misleading. Like if you look at this cover on the left for The Dragon's Husband, that looks like a very 18 plus cover. You have these like dragon claws grabbing this guy in a uniform and you're like, ooh, this is going to be sexy. But it's not. It's a very, very plot focused story. And so having the one pepper there lets you know, okay, despite the cover being, very ecchi looking, this is actually a very plot focused story that's not going to have a lot of sex in it. And I was able to enjoy it as that. But if I had been someone who wanted something very sexy and I looked up that cover and was like, oh, this looks sexy, I might have been disappointed. And having that one pepper letting me know this is a more plot focused story was helpful to know what I'm getting myself into. So one thing before we move on, with Futekia, I don't know what's going on, but for some reason, all of the summaries are missing for all of the work. So I'm recording this panel mid-August. And as of right now, all of the like summaries and descriptions for the different works is not appearing on the site. I'm assuming that's just a temporary thing while they're working on the site. The merge happened this year, so there is still some kinks they're working out. And I'm assuming that's going to come back. But at the moment, there is this weird thing where there are no summaries for any of the works. There are no descriptions about what the works are about. So if you are choosing between Yaoi Cat and Manga Planet, Yaoi Cat is cheaper. However, Manga Planet is going to have a bigger library, and not just of non-yaoi books, but their yaoi library is bigger. The cons, however, is that, right now, for some reason, they have no summaries. They have no episode descriptions, while Yaoi Cat actually has descriptions of what it is you're going to be reading. So pros and cons to each. You can try them both out. I usually do Manga Planet. I kind of like the search engine better. I like the pepper system, but they are both legitimate websites that you can use that can help support authors instead of reading Scanlations. So those were the two subscription sites that we kind of pulled out and were like, these are the ones we're going to talk about. However, there are lots of other subscription sites to choose from, like Comixology and Kindle and Manga Plaza and all this kinds of stuff. If you want to try those subscription sites, what do you do? Well, in general, remember a lot of them have free trials. You can try them out just to see if you're even interested in them. There's lots of stuff on them that's not yaoi. You could be a really good deal for you. And it's always important to remember the sort of read, cancel, and come back. You can read what you want and then just cancel and then like wait a year and come back and see if they have anything else interesting because they're always updating. There's always new stuff happening. This is like going to these subscription sites is actually a really great way for trying new comics or new yaoi mangakas. Like there are yaoi mangakas out there that's like, I don't know if I want to spend money on this person. I don't know anything about this person, but their work might be on one of these subscription sites. And so you could do a free trial or sign up for a month and read a bunch of stuff, try out a bunch of new authors. In general, subscription sites can be a really useful way to get a lot of content at a cheap price. So this is the list of subscription sites. I'm going to leave that up for just a moment if anyone wants to take a screen cap before we move on. Okay, moving on, we're going to talk about Webtoon sites. Now, there are a lot of Webtoon sites to choose from, and just like with the subscription sites, we really don't have time to go into them and talk about them individually and the pros and cons. So in general, we are going to, do some basic advice. And the basic advice I have for dealing with Webtoon sites is number one is to shop around. It's important to shop around because what you are looking for might be on multiple sites. So, for example, we have Biting the Tiger, and Biting the Tiger is available on so many sites. And if you don't shop around, you won't realize what the best deal is. In this example, if you want to buy it, the cheapest place to buy it is from TappyTune. And if you want to do a subscription, well, you can save a lot of money by doing Tune Mix and getting, it may be $8, but you would get the entire series through the subscription site. So shop around. If you have something you want to read, it may be in multiple places and it may be cheaper somewhere. Another reason to shop around is sometimes you have some weird series where there's part of the series in one place and part in another or whatever. So there's Kingsmaker, and season 1 of Kingsmaker is on Lezhin, and it's about like 55 cents per chapter, 60 cents per chapter, depending on what sort of coin package you buy. But here's the thing, that same season is also on TappyTune. And season 2 and 3 are on TappyTune. They're called Triple Crown. And not only are they cheaper at more like 35 cents per chapter, but season 2 and 3 also have a mature version. So you don't even have 2 and 3 on Lezhin. You don't have the mature version on Lezhin. And if you are only reading comics on Lezhin, you may not realize that this series has other seasons that are on a completely different website. You can read 1 through 3, both the regular version and the mature version, on TappyTune. You cannot read them on Lezhin. And here's another really interesting example. This is Dear Door. And so there are multiple versions of Dear Door. You have the censored lightsaber version of Dear Door. And by lightsaber, I mean like their genitalia has been whited out. And you can get that version on TappyTune or Lezhin. But you can get a 100% uncensored version on Tapas. This uncensored version has everything. You see everything. You see veins, everything. And so if you want that kind of thing, you can only get it on Tapas. So once again, it is good to shop around. There may be different versions of that same thing you're looking for. So, in addition to shopping around, it's important to remember that there can be some weird stuff with mature content and Webtoons. A lot of Webtoons have apps that simply don't have mature content on them. See, these apps are on the App Store, and the App Store has like certain rules. No matter whether you have Android or Apple, there is app stores that have rules. And so the apps can't put mature content on there. So in order to get mature content, you have to do one of two things. You either have to download a separate app from the web browser, or you have to use the web browser version of the app. So if you look at Lezhin, Lezhin is an example of they have an app on the App Store, but then they have a separate Lezhin Plus app that has all the mature stuff on it that you can only get through the web browser. So here's some of the instructions where you actually have to go on the website on your phone, find the spot to download it, and download it through the website because you cannot get the Lezhin Plus app through the App Store. Now, not everybody has an additional app. For many, they just have it, so you have to use the mature section on their web browser. So for TappyTune and Tapas, it isn't best to use the app if you want mature content. It's better to go on the web browser, turn on the mature section, or go to the mature section to actually read the content, because that content isn't going to be available on the app. So this whole web browser versus app can be very important because it can affect search functions. So let's say you want to read the Ennead. The Ennead is on TappyTune, and you go on the TappyTune app and you search Ennead. Well, the only thing that's going to show up is the censored version of the Ennead. The only way you can even see that there's two different versions of the Ennead is if you are searching on the web browser. If you are using the TappyTune browser version and you search Ennead, you will see there is a censored version and an uncensored mature version. but you can only see that on the web browser. You can't see that on the TappyToon app because the TappyToon app is censored. And so we were talking earlier about Kingsmaker and Dear Door, and it's important to remember that if you want to read these on TappyToon or Tapas, that those mature versions are going to be on the web browser version. They are not going to be on the app version. So another thing to note about Webtoons is that there is a lot of free or wait until free stuff. Look for these little clock symbols. A lot of those little clock symbols are for something called wait until free. That basically means that you will unlock an episode after a certain amount of time. Like you read an episode and you'll unlock a free one the next day or in a couple of hours. So if you're patient, you can actually read a lot of stuff for free with the wait until free aspect. And a lot of web apps have that. Here is a list of the Webtoon sites and apps. I'm going to leave that up on the screen for a moment so people can take a screen cap of that. Okay, that is it for Webtoons. Now we're going to focus on manga sites and apps. And first, we're going to talk about Yaoi stores and publishers. There are 3 Yaoi publishers that have ebook stores that you can use. There is June, Sublime, and IRODORI. June is really nice because it lets you pick what format you want. So I recommend the PDF or CBZ, but there's a variety of formats here that you can choose from, and you have the ability to pick which one. Then we have Sublime. Sublime is really great. They have PDF or EPUB. I do recommend PDF, but I've heard their EPUBs are pretty decent. I have not tried their EPUBs. However, what's nice about their store is they have direct links to other places to buy. So if you would rather buy on Amazon or on Nook, they have like links that take you directly there. Next is IRODORI Sakura. Now, IRODORI Sakura only has a PDF format. They are a yaoi and a yuri store, and they tend to specialize on short stories, more doujinshi type of stuff, and they can be a little more on the expensive side. You know, here we have an example where this is only 71 pages and it is $13.95. However, they are specializing in these short stories, in stories you're probably not going to get otherwise, that more mainstream Sublime and June are not going to provide you. They tend to, like I said, have more of a doujinshi focus. So they are interesting to check out, even if they are a little more expensive. They have a lot of unique stuff on their website. So once again, there is a lot of manga stores to choose from. We highlighted 3 places that are yaoi focused, but there is a lot to choose from when we are buying manga through a manga store. And we don't have time to go through all of them, so we are just going to go through some general rules. Once again, just like with the Webtoons, I highly recommend you shop around. Here's an example of why you should shop around. You have something like Mouthmate, and on the June website, it is $4.45 per chapter. But if you go on the Bookwalker website, it is only $1.43 per chapter. That is a huge difference. So if you find something you are interested in, feel free to shop around and see if you can get a better deal somewhere else. And in general, when dealing with manga stores, pay attention to what you are buying. Ask yourself a couple questions. Is it a chapter or is it a book I am buying? So here's an example of a book I really like. Geniano is a really good book. And you can buy the volume or you can buy the chapters. So these screen grabs you see are both from Amazon. So on Amazon, you can buy the volume for $6.99 for the entire book, or you can buy all of the chapters, all 7 chapters for $12.93. So really ask yourself, what am I buying? Am I buying a chapter or am I buying a book? Because if there's a place where you can buy the whole book at once, it may be cheaper. And you may have the option on the same website. There is multiple websites that will sell the same book as a volume or as separate chapters. And if you do a search, you'll see that you can pick. So if you have the ability to buy the whole volume, it can be cheaper. Look for that. And pay attention. Am I buying just a chapter? Am I spending $5 on just a chapter? Or am I spending this money on an entire volume? Another question to ask is it the original manga or is it the webtoon version? This is the example from earlier that I showed you, where you have regular manga books. This is from Titan's Bride, and they are being taken apart and reorganized as webtoons to make them easier to read on a phone. So you're going to have situations in which you're going to have multiple versions of the same book. For example, reincarnated into Demon King Evilangia's world, there is a manga version and a webtoon version. And if you want to read it on a tablet, I recommend getting the manga version. You can get that from several stores like Book Rocker, Renta, Kobo, all these different places have the manga version. But if you're going to read it on your phone, you may want the webtoon version. The webtoon version is going to be easier to read on your phone. And you can get that from Coolmic and Inker. So this is another question when you're buying. Ask yourself, am I getting the manga version? Am I getting the webtoon version? What do I want? Do I want the manga version or do I want the webtoon version? And also there may be both versions on the same site. So this is a Renta site and it has a Coward Falls in Love. There is a regular manga version and there is a webtoon version which they call Verticomics. And one note about multiple versions, manga versus webtoons, is sometimes you'll have some stuff where the chapter numbers don't line up. So with A Coward Falls in Love, you have the original manga version. It's 6 chapters, each for $2. And then you have the webtoon version, which is 12 chapter, each for $1. And that can be really confusing. People are like, wait a minute, is there more with the webtoon version? You should know that when they reorganize manga into webtoons, in order to make it easier to deal with because they're such long files, they often break it up. So they will take one chapter and they will break that up into 2 to 3 chapters. So if you see a manga that is 6 chapters and the webtoon version is 12 chapters, don't worry, you're not missing anything. You're not going to get more with the webtoon version. It's just that when they rearrange and cut up the manga version and put it into a webtoon version, they normally divvy it up into 2 and 3 chapters per manga chapter. So you will often have more chapters in the webtoon version than you will have in the manga version, but it's the same book. The next question to ask yourself is this a quality ebook? Is the image clear? And if you're not sure, is there a preview? Can I look and see if the image quality is good? Can I look and see if this is a quality ebook? So remembering back to earlier in the panel, we were talking about poor quality ebooks. There are some formats that are very problematic. There are just some really bad books that just have, poor resolution. And the example on the left is an EPUB example. The example on the right is one we haven't talked about. That is Three Wolves Mountain. I bought that book on Kobo, and at the time, I don't know what was going on with Kobo, but they were selling ebooks that you could only read both pages at the same time. So that big black border on top and that big black border on the bottom, I did not add those. It was impossible to read one page at a time. So the format just sort of added both those borders on top and bottom. And I'm like, there must be something I'm doing wrong, some sort of setting I need to fix. And I contacted customer support and they were like, nope, that's just how we sell it. And it's like, oh, cool. So if you see a preview and it doesn't work well, you only can read both pages at the same time, or the resolution is really bad, or there's giant white borders, shop around and see if there's a copy of this book somewhere else. So for example, Three Wolves Mountain, I was able to get that book right from the Sublime website in a PDF format, and it was beautiful. It was great. I didn't have any problems. A lot of the time these books are going to be on multiple sites. And so if you come across one that is problematic, you can get it somewhere else. There was one example of a book that I got off Amazon, and it just had these like white borders on three sides. And I returned it, got my money back, and I went to the June website and got a CBZ directly from the June website, and it worked fine. So you can return books that are problematic in some way, but before you buy them, definitely look for a preview, because the preview a lot of times will let you know if it's a poor quality ebook, if there's resolution or formatting issues. So here is a list of all the manga sites you can buy from. I'm going to leave this on the screen for a moment so people can take a screen cap before we move on. So before we go on to the Q&A section, I'm just going to answer some questions that I get a lot of. And so the first question a lot of people ask is, what happens if an ebook store closes? Now, it's really important to remember that when you are buying an ebook, you don't really own the ebook. Like when you buy a print book, you have that print book, and you can do what you want with that print book. You could resell that print book if you wanted to. But you can't do that with an ebook because you're not really buying the ebook. What you are buying is access to the ebook. If you buy a book off Amazon, you are buying access to the book, not an actual copy of the book. So if Amazon were to go away, or whatever store you bought it from were to go away, it is possible you would lose access to the ebooks you purchased. Now, how likely is that to happen? Honestly, what's more likely to happen if an ebook store closes is that your information is going to get moved to a new store. It's really important that when a store is closing, they are going to try and get as much money as they can out of the business before it closes. And all those licenses they have for ebooks has value. All those customers who are spending money on their site has value. They are probably going to merge with another store in order to get as much money out of this as possible before they close. So an example of when this has happened is there was an app called WeComics, and WeComics wasn't doing well and they had to close, and they ended up merging with Webnovel. And so they transferred all of their comics to Webnovel, and they transferred all of their client accounts to Webnovel. So if you were using webcomics and you had purchased stuff, you didn't lose anything. You just sort of transferred everything you had over to a new app. So it is possible when a store closes, you will lose access to ebooks. But honestly, what's more likely to happen is a merge is going to happen. And so instead of accessing it from the old site, you will be accessing those ebooks from a new site. Another question I get a lot is, what happens if an ebook store loses an ebook or Webtoon license? And honestly, I've had this happen so many times. This is actually really, really common. But in general, what you purchase, you keep. So for example, I purchased Walk on Water from Tappytoon. And Tappytoon lost the license, and then the license went to Lezhin. But I still had access to everything I purchased. When I go into my purchases, it's still there and I can still read it. In general, what you purchase, you keep. And this isn't just for Webtoons. This is also, a lot of stores have this. For example, I purchased Yarichin Bitch Club on Amazon. And for some reason, the book was taken off the store for a while. But I still had access to the book on Amazon even when you couldn't purchase it. So new customers, cannot buy the book. Customers cannot get Walk on Water from Tappy Toon. During that time, Yarichin Bitch Club was taken off Amazon. You could not go on Amazon and buy it. But someone who had already bought the book or already bought the webtoon still had access. So don't worry too much about them losing licenses. It's annoying, like, because, then I can't recommend to other people, oh, I read it on Tappy Toon, go read it on Tappy Toon. Well, it's not there anymore. So that aspect is annoying, but you should be able to still keep what you purchased. You may have to like go into your purchases on the app and find it that way. Like you can't find it from the main site because it's not available on the main site anymore. But you should be able to access what you purchase even if the store loses the ebook or webtoon license. That is the end of my presentation. Next, we're going to have Q&A. So any questions you guys might have, let me know and I will do my best to answer them.